Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk, bringing you the world's best books every day. I'm Wu Hayun. Today we'll explore Tom's River with its striking subtitle, A Story of an American Cancer Cluster Village. This book vividly depicts how an ordinary American town became a cancer cluster, revealing the relationship between environmental pollution and cancer. Author Dan Fagin is an NYU journalism professor and former environmental reporter at Washington Newsday with 15 years' experience. In 2014, this book won two top honors: the Pulitzer Prize for General Nonfiction, the highest global recognition in journalism and literature, and the Rachel Carson Award. This award, named after Silent Spring author, is a key benchmark for environmental literature. The New York Times praised it as a new classic in science writing by Fagin. Tom's River is located along the river in New Jersey Pine Barrens, originally blessed with pristine ecology. But since the 1970s, 80s, increasing cancer cases emerged, especially among children. This was traced to a major chemical plant that moved into the area. For decades since operation, the factory polluted the town's water and soil, and the Tom's River case became one of America's largest environmental lawsuits. Fagin not only documents the environmental degradation, but analyzes roles of corporations, individuals, and government stakeholders, the complex relationships that allowed decades of pollution without consequences. What enabled this? How did residents react to the pollution? And what actions did the government take? We'll examine the book through four key questions. First, how far will corporations go when regulatory oversight fails? Second, how short-sighted can people be when chasing immediate profits? Third, how difficult is it to scientifically prove environmental causes of cancer? Fourth, how far will ordinary citizens go to fight for justice? All right, let's dive right in. First question, how far will corporations go when there's no effective regulation? The company in Tom's River is called Ciba-Gigi. I'll refer to it as Ciba from now on. Founded in the 1880s in Switzerland, it was one of the world's largest chemical companies. In the 20th century, the company expanded globally, arriving in America by 1920. Initially, they didn't choose Tom's River, but Cincinnati, Ohio. Why did Cincinnati become Ciba's first U.S. choice? Simple answer: Cincinnati had existing industrial infrastructure since mid-19th century. Ciba could simply acquire two existing factories instead of building new ones. Plus, Cincinnati's Ohio River wide, deep, with fast currents. Like other factories, Ciba dumped industrial waste directly into the river. But daily dumping caused problems over years. By 1930s to 40s, their river section became Ohio's most polluted stretch. This pollution became a major scandal for America's vital waterway. From 1936 to 1945, Congress held four related hearings. Heber decided to relocate, but where? Learning from past mistakes, avoid densely populated cities, find secluded areas for discrete operations. After searching, they chose Tom's River in New Jersey's deep pine forests. In 1949, Ciba moved its plant from Cincinnati to this location. To stay hidden, they built in deep woods, clearing 30-plus acres while maintaining 1-kilometer forest buffer. The factory remained invisible behind trees, only gates visible through the woods. All right, the factory's built. Now they needed to handle production waste. Now, Ciba was a chemical company. We all know chemical production creates massive pollution and waste. Their waste came in two forms: solid and liquid, both highly toxic regardless of state. For solid waste, the cheapest solution: pack into 55-gallon steel drums. Each drum held about 200 liters. They buried these in wells, hid them in ditches, or just dumped them in surrounding forests, producing 20,000 plus barrels annually, over 4 million liters of hazardous waste handled recklessly. What about liquid waste? Same as Cincinnati days, dumped directly into Tom's River. Tom's River originally had a thriving ecosystem where natural murkiness came from aquatic life. Seba shamelessly exploited this natural characteristic to downplay river quality. Look, this river water isn't even clear. They even claimed their acidic wastewater would improve the river's alkalinity. Utter nonsense! Surprisingly, few challenged these claims initially. A 1953 SEBA brochure stated, treated wastewater is clear, neutral, harmless to fish. A 1961 internal memo bluntly called Tom's River convenient chemical waste container. But why didn't all wastewater go into the river? This small river wasn't the Ohio. Too narrow and slow to handle all industrial waste. They found another solution. Underground. The porous sandy soil beneath shallow groundwater proved perfect. They dug two types of wells, extraction wells for groundwater and injection wells for waste disposal. Pumping clean water through extraction wells while injecting toxic waste via disposal wells simultaneously. Doesn't this sound utterly insane? Even without expertise, we know this would cause catastrophic pollution. This was a disaster waiting to happen. And indeed, disaster struck. But for decades, SEBA managed crises through various tactics. As early as 1957, chemical contaminants were detected in town water. Nobody took it seriously then. In 1965, residents noticed foul-smelling tap water. SEBA secretly partnered with water company, declaring water safe while adding excessive chlorine. Well, at around same time, Tom's River showed dead fish and chemical odors. Finally, SEBA stopped claiming they improved river quality. Their solution? Build pipeline, dumping waste directly into Atlantic Ocean. Spring 1984, the uneasy truce between town and factory finally broke. Road crews found blackened, chemical-smelling soil under warped pavement. A local journalist's expose sparked national attention. From that moment on, SEBA's golden days were numbered. The EPA discovered the industrial waste flowing through pipelines into the Atlantic was lethal to organisms. If not killing them, it damaged genetic material. Health authorities found suspected carcinogens in backyard wells along the town's pipeline routes. Environmental groups turned local pollution into national news, sparking massive environmental campaigns. But all these interventions came far too late. By then, Tom's River showed alarming cancer clusters, particularly among children. A cancer cluster means unusually high in concentrated disease occurrence within specific population. New Jersey hospitals saw a constant influx of pediatric cancer patients from Tom's River. A Philadelphia Children's Hospital cancer ward admitted Tom's River patients almost weekly during 1993 to 1994. Eventually, over 100 families from this under 100 kilo population town settled lawsuits against SEBA. In 1991, SEBA shut down Tom's River discharge pipelines. In 1996, after dumping 100+ billion gallons of wastewater and 200,000 toxic barrels, the plant closed completely. But this didn't mean corporate reform. Within a year, their Swiss parent relocated chemical production to developing Asian countries. SEBA's actions echo Marx's famous capital critique. Capital comes dripping from head to toe, from every pore, with blood and dirt. Let's recap this chapter's key points. To maintain waste disposal efficiency, SEBA moved from Cincinnati to Tom's River. This hidden town endured direct pollution of rivers, groundwater, and Atlantic Ocean. Without regulation, the corporation showed zero hesitation in environmental destruction. When regulations tightened, they simply relocated to regions with weaker oversight. After learning about SEBA's disgraceful actions, you might wonder, what were the locals doing? Didn't they care? How could they coexist with such a company for so long? Here's something even more surprising. Many locals supported the company even after environmental damage surfaced. Introducing our second issue. How short-sighted can people be when chasing immediate gains? Consider this crucial context. Pre-SEBA, Tom's River struggled economically. Many survived by selling eggs. SEBA's arrival ended poultry farming as main industry. This global corporation put the obscure town on the map. Elders recall 1952 factory opening as joyous event, finally bringing jobs. 6 months later, they held grand naming ceremony. Unprecedented local spectacle. The factory kept expanding. By 1961, employed 1,000 workers with excellent wages. Skilled operators earned $3 per hour, top-tier blue-collar pay at the time. Even non-employees benefited. Former chicken farmers sold land to developers at soaring prices. SIBA built hospitals, golf courses, country clubs, appearing socially responsible. Migrant workers and entrepreneurs flocked to the growing town. Land values skyrocketed. Former egg sellers became property tycoons. The factory became community's golden goose through strategic investments. Locals enjoyed jobs and income from the chemical plant. Rising property values, improved facilities, and comfortable living. They remained loyal supporters even after pollution surfaced. By 1960s, Toms River's pollution was undeniable. Yet 86% in town polls saw plant as asset, only 6% as burden. 34% blamed plant for water pollution, but only 4% opposed expansion. Economic gains often override environmental concerns, sometimes criminally. Enter Nick, a local who found lucrative scheme. He offered SIBA licensed landfills to handle toxic barrels. Complete lie. SIBA desperate as factory space filled with barrels. Deal struck immediately. Jick rented abandoned chicken farm for $40 per month, buried 5,000 toxic barrels underground. Toxic spread went undetected for years beneath sleeping community. Even with cancer clusters emerging, SIBA remained defiant. Plant manager told media, progress requires environmental sacrifice. Nobody wants to live like Native Americans' simple life. His arrogance reflected many workers' sentiments. Think about it. Factory workers faced higher toxic exposure and health risks. Many actually developed cancer. Why did they still support the company? They feared plant closure more than cancer. Immediate job loss seemed worse. Enough examples. Let's analyze the pattern. Economic prosperity bred community support, which empowered corporate recklessness. When forced to choose, economic gains usually trump environmental protection. This short-sightedness became integral to Toms River's tragedy. Now, our third question, why is proving pollution cancer links so difficult? We know about pollution and cancer clusters in 1970s to 80s, Toms River, but legally proving causation for punishment, far harder than imagined. Chemical pollution causing cancer seems obvious, but science says otherwise. The book reveals, even today, establishing causal links remains challenging. This touches correlation versus causation, statistics double-edged sword. What does this mean? Two confirmed variables: industrial pollution, EPA verified, and cancer clusters, medical data. But scientifically proving causation requires eliminating all other variables. Cancer's complexity compounds this. Unlike cholera, specific pathogen, or Down syndrome, genetic cause, cancer encompasses hundreds of diseases with multifactorial origins. The term cancer encompasses 200 plus diseases with complex causes. More variables mean harder causal proof. Scientists persistently explore pollution cancer causality. Studies on London chimney sweeps and German uranium miners aimed to identify carcinogens. Japanese scientist Katsuburo Yamagaiwa proved coal tar's carcinogenicity via rabbit ear experiments. But cancer pathology remains incredibly complex. Same pollutant affects individuals differently based on genes, lifestyle, and exposure history. By 1970s, cancer spread from factory workers to Toms River residents. Children developed leukemia, neuroblastoma, retinoblastoma, devastating diagnoses. Desperate parents demanded New Jersey Health Department investigation in 1986. Initial findings, no statistically significant cancer anomalies found. Understandably, families rejected these conclusions. 1995 saw renewed investigation. 6-year costly endeavor. Finally confirmed. Elevated leukemia rates in local girls passed rigorous statistical tests. Seems insufficient? Perhaps. But this was groundbreaking progress. By book's publication, only 2 U.S. cancer clusters had confirmed pollution links, Tom's River being one. Most clusters lack sufficient samples or evidence for confirmation. Even with ideal data, establishing specific pollutant cancer links remains elusive. Cancer's multifactorial nature defies simple cause-effect relationships. Statistical significance thresholds often obscure human tragedies. All right, let's recap this section's key points. While common sense blames SIBA for the cancer cluster, scientific proof remains nearly impossible. This is profoundly disheartening, isn't it? We've witnessed corporate recklessness when regulations fail, and human tendency to prioritize immediate gains over long-term health. A fundamental weakness. Scientific validation's immense challenges compound the tragedy. So we must ask, what can be done? If capital's brutality and human frailty persist, is hope possible? The author insists hope remains. Tom's River story, while tragic, contains rays of light. Now our fourth and final question. How far will ordinary people go to fight for justice? Despite darkness, Tom's River achieved partial victory. SIBA's eventual departure. This resulted from ordinary citizens awakening in resistance. Scientific evidence merely supported their grassroots struggle. Among many activists, let's focus on Linda, a cancer-stricken child's mother. In 1979, blue-eyed golden-haired Michael was born. Resembling Renaissance cherub, at 3 months, ominous lumps appeared on his body. Hospital diagnosis shattered his parents' world. Michael had neuroblastoma, aggressive nervous system cancer. The tumor ravaged his body, stole left eye or ear functions, damaged balance, displaced organs. Steroid treatments stunted his growth and caused facial swelling. Chemotherapy damaged his heart and lungs, destroyed stomach lining, and eroded bones. Linda's anguish watching her child suffer was unimaginable. But Linda proved resilient, initially focusing entirely on caregiving. Endless hours in pediatric wards revealed Tom's River's disproportionate suffering. A late-night conversation with construction worker parent sparked suspicion. He revealed installing toxic waste pipes through town for SIBA. Linda connected the dots. Factory pollution causing childhood cancers. She joined cancer charity, aiding families while funding research. The 1988 public hearing became a pivotal moment. Linda took the podium as speaker. She began by acknowledging children holding black-ribboned roses, detailing 41 pediatric cancer cases since 1983, 10 already dead. As she spoke, children distributed roses to officials and SIBA staff. Linda's metaphor, fading roses, mirror dying children's silent agony. Our children's deaths aren't peaceful. Their suffering screams for justice. I entrust our children's fate, born and unborn, to your hands. The speech's impact was seismic. A SIBA manager present knew they'd lost public support irrevocably. The manager whispered to colleagues, "How do you counter this?" Melinda wasn't alone. Like Stephanie, a housewife who organized despite her kids being healthy. Outraged by water contamination, she formed a science-literate group with friends. Their group, Ocean County Citizens for Clean Water, demanded stricter testing and waste disclosure. They published open letters, organized town hall meetings. Initial efforts ignored. SIBA dismissed them as insignificant, fatal miscalculation. Environmental activists joined, planning dramatic protests for media attention. Activists scaled SIBA's 50-meter water tower at night, hanging massive banners. News helicopters captured the spectacle next morning. By afternoon, protests aired on Philadelphia and NYC News. Tom's River became national headline overnight. Ordinary people's resistance ultimately brought corporate accountability. 696, victims' families filed lawsuit against SIBA. 2001, settlement approved. Exact compensation undisclosed. Court documents suggest 35 to 40 million payout, including legal fees. Most importantly, Tom's River regained environmental safety. These stories prove collective citizen action creates profound impact. Justice needn't wait for irrefutable scientific proof. As Hugo said, above absolute revolution lies absolute humanism. The author emphasizes ordinary people's crucial role in environmental protection. First step, collect local environmental data and disease rates. Consult trusted experts like university professors for analysis. Most importantly, demand media attention and government action through persistent advocacy. While Tom's River's story concludes, similar tragedies continue globally. Chemical giants like Ciba, Gigi now operate in developing nations after leaving developed countries. This book exposes corporate greed and the necessity of strict regulation. It confronts human short-sightedness, urging focus on long-term societal benefits, honestly acknowledges science's current limitations in proving cancer causes, reminds us of civic responsibility to protect our environment. We must vigilantly oppose polluters to safeguard our shared home. This concludes our exploration of Tom's River, a cancer cluster story. Find keynotes below the audio. See you tomorrow.